Yes, sir.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so we talked about again how we want to define social psychology and explain how it's different from other social science perspectives. We want to speak to how human behavior can be measured, no matter what the behavior is. And we do this through the aspect of scientific study that looks at human beings in three ways. We study how human beings think, how they feel, and how they behave. But also within that social context, because Latavia, again, like even this, us, the same individuals we are here today, you put us in a different environment, and all those things can be very different. You know, well, I'll get more specific in a moment. This scientific method involves systematic observation. That's where I talked about the difference, Michael, between you observing that Dr. Muhammad drinks a lot of Red Bulls and Dr. Muhammad drunk 73 Red Bulls this semester. That's very different. Description. Again, describing like, again, being very specific with what you see. And then measurement, oftentimes, Ron Anderson, involves some type of numbers. It involves some type of numbers. So a measure of your health might be your weight, your blood pressure, your heart rate, things of that nature. We went through the different areas of social psychology that we're going to focus on, and that kind of gives you a blueprint for the chapters that you're going to read in coming weeks that I think you'll find are very interesting. And we left off talking about how sociology and social psychology have some differences. As Ron had alluded to last class, there's definitely some overlap with these things, but sociology, it focuses more on the group. Where in social psychology, we absolutely will give some focuses on some foci on groups behavior, absolutely. But here, we often try and look at how the individual responds and react within a group context. That if you're around a group of, mainly white people, how might you behave differently? If you're a group around like, good church-going folks, how might that impact your behavior, your feelings? And again, as Michael's doing here, I highly recommend that you take notes. If you're not in a position to take notes right now, again, my hope is, now not my hope, I am going to have these lectures posted over the weekend, and you can go back and look at them, and you can take notes at that time. And as you take notes, please let me know if you have any questions about anything. Notes should not just involve, Latavia, you just writing down what's on the screen. I want you to write this stuff down in a way that it's going to make sense for you. So your notes should look different from Ron's notes. Ron's notes should look different from Michael's. And in a way that, especially that you're going to remember it. Ron Anderson.
I have put in the chat that I got a business phone call I got to take. I apologize. That's my fault, but they called, and so I'll be right back shortly.
For sure. Do your thing, man. I appreciate the notice.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And for everybody, like, again, y'all are adults. If y'all got to do things like that, I totally understand. I appreciate the notice. I'm here for y'all. And like I said, the information is going to be available to you. I generally do want you to be here, Maisha, where if you have a question in real time, I want to be able to answer it. And keep in mind that in all of this, Michael, like, we're trying to understand, like, human and social behavior. That's really important in the times that we live in because, quite frankly, it'd be a lot of crazy things going on. So when we talk about, something like, I think that's affected most of us emotionally over this year, just, some of the horrible public, murders of unarmed Black people at the hands of the police. Comparing that, Latavia, where we see again, like, Kyle Rittenhour in Wisconsin, like, had actually just murdered 2 people, and the police, like, treated him very differently. I mean, it's just really amazing to see at times. And then, of course, we saw this at the Capitol. What happened at the Capitol a couple weeks back. But it's important, Maisha, for us to understand that these things are not inevitable. This is not how human beings have to behave. So we try and work from the premise that we can do better, but the way that we do better, we actually have to understand human behavior. And understanding human behavior relays on science. So in science, Latavia, like for example, right, like we know, like I'll give you just a quick experiment. They do computer simulations, right? Where so like, you know, most of us, we probably play video games or something like that. So Michael, you playing Call of Duty or something like that, and something pops up on the screen and you gotta shoot them real quick. So they did these experiments, Maisha, where you get a white face pop up on the screen real quick, you get a black face on the screen pop up real quick. And you got to react in a moment to see, like, you know, to see if this person is a threat and how you're going to deal with it. In those simulations, do your own research on this, but we have found that across the board, and black and white people, it's more common amongst whites, but people pull that trigger in that video game way more when they see a black face than when they see a white face. Now, what we want to try and find out in social psychology, Latavia, is why? Because if we can figure out why, we believe as scientists we can prevent these things from happening. It's way more people. Like so today, for example, right? Y'all probably be vaping and stuff like that more than you should. Be careful with that stuff. But it's way fewer people that smoke like tobacco today than like our parents and grandparents' generation. Why do y'all think that is?
Because a lot of people that converted to vaping, either that or a lot of people they stop smoking in general.
Right, but why? Why do you think that so many people stop smoking?
Oh, they stop because maybe they see like some of the health problems they keep having, or people around them that's having health problems from it, so that make them want to stop.
Excellent. Maisha?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, now you know the health deficiencies and like the health problems and risk tobacco has.
And what both of those answers speak to, very, very good, young people. What both of those answers speak to is that we simply just got more information about it. In the 1950s and stuff, Michael, the tobacco companies would try and deny that there was any, like, you know, health effects with smoking cigarettes at all. Like, you can go and find advertisements in the 1950s for like pregnant women smoking cigarettes. Real talk. Do your own research. I could be making this up, but like seriously, like, so the tobacco companies would tell people, hey, there's no harm with tobacco smoke. It's perfectly healthy. It's okay. So the science has allowed us to get more information, and as people got more information, they've done different things. So like, again, like, you know, now that we all know the harmful effects of tobacco smoking, many of us, like, you know, never even like thought about trying. Like, you know, it's not even something that we have to guess about. So the more that we can learn about our world, the better decisions we can make. The same way I talked about, right? In the Black community, we suffer at a higher rate of hypertension, diabetes, and stuff like that. We still got a long way to go, but we're getting better. Younger Black people, we're monitoring our eating habits a lot more than our parents and grandparents did. We be exercising more. Again, we definitely got to do better. I know I do. But because we have information and we know that people ain't just getting these diseases out of nowhere, we can react to this information and we can make different choices. Keep this in mind, right? Because that's what we want to use social science information to do as well. That we can learn more about our behavior. And if there's some behaviors that are harmful to us, we can change them. The same way, again, like I talked about with individual psychology, where if you go to like a therapist or something, where if you're going to some mental health issues that you know are impacting your progress in life, if you can understand that about yourself, and sometimes it takes help to do that, you can like improve. We talked about, again, people that have like, you know, addictive addictions. Like 100 years ago, man, we was just like, you know, forget them people. They just weak and they just, you know, they can't be saved. That's not true, right? That, I mean, people can like have like battle addictions that they may have had like 10, 20 years. There's a science to beat an addiction. So keep this in mind as we go forward. I'm going to go through these categories briefly again, because I want you all to understand the differences between sociology and social psychology. One of the main things, again, that I want you to see here as we go through the slide, where am I getting this information from? Where do you think I'm getting this information from here?
A textbook.
Absolutely. Yes. So please note, there's no mystery to anything I'm going to do here. Everything I'm providing you is going to be informed by your text, but I'm giving you a quick Cliff Notes version, Latavia. So please make sure that you read up on your own as well in between classes. And as you read, what I really hope to have happen is you have questions about what you read. I know, again, you're not going to understand everything right away. That's okay. What class should be for is helping you to unpack some of the things that you read. But really, and I know it can be challenging at times because we don't stress it in America, but get into the habit of reading is one of the best habits that you can develop. And I really, really encourage you to get into that, particularly about something that you're really interested in. Like, I'm not going to read a whole bunch about quantum physics, but whatever your major is, I hope that it really engages you, and you better be prepared to read a whole bunch about that throughout the rest of your life. Michael, you said you criminal justice, right?
Human services.
Say it again.
Human services.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, and I got you 1 second, Ryan. So in human services, where you go into psychology, social work, what have you, some type of therapy, like, you're always going to have to be reading because information is going to be changing constantly, and you need to know the best ways to help the people that you're serving. Ryan, what's your question or comment, young man?
So earlier, well, just a couple of minutes ago, you mentioned individual psychology. And I was thinking back to the section of the book that we're on right now where they mentioned personal psychology. So I was thinking, are those the same thing or are they slightly different? Because sometimes I know there's a trend of things having kind of similar names, but being totally different things.
Wait, say that again. I didn't, like, which type of psychology are you asking about?
You mentioned individual psychology and the book says personal psychology. I was just saying, is that another word for it?
No, yeah, same thing. Yes, those are the same things. Absolutely. Right.
Okay.
Great questions. And again here, right, like, and look at this for yourselves, because I hear a lot of times where students have told me that they want to go into the field of psychology, but to Ryan's question, that can mean different things. So you want to be very clear on exactly what it is you want to do within this discipline. So clinical psychology, for example, they test various therapies for people with antisocial personality. So this is where if you're dealing with like people who are schizophrenic, bipolar, or something like that, they need to go see a clinical psychologist. Personality psychologist. So this is where we can measure, like, if somebody is more racist, if somebody is more aggressive, if somebody is more likely to become an abusive parent. There are certain personalities that are more aligned with those type of behaviors. And these type of psychologists will get to understand that, because again, most people don't want to be abusive parents, but it can require some help sometimes to kind of interrupt that process. Cognitive psychologists, again, they manipulate exposure to members. So a lot of people, for example, right, this is where, like, a lot of people who go into psychology, Ron, you know what they end up doing? They go work for companies as cognitive psychologists. What do you think a business would need a psychologist for? Why would a corporation need a psychologist?
Easy. Again, a corporation, whether they're marketing or selling something, you got to understand people to, appeal to the interest. That's kind of why we talk about, how you walk in the front of the store, sometimes TV's in the front, you see them once and then you see them in the back. And, it's hot items in the front, just understanding how the human mind works. So, just human behavior in total, again, we talked about little small snacks and energy drinks at the front of the store, thinking, I'm here already. I might as well grab one. I think those are the cognitive, like, people that think about thinking, metacognition and such things. Like, okay, we know how the customers think, and that's how we're going to make money.
Good. Excellent, Ron. So 1 extra credit point for that response. Very good. So cognitive, whenever you hear this word, Michael, whenever you hear cognition or cognitive, it speaks to thinking. How do you think about things? So people that specialize in cognitive psychology tap into this. So if you're trying to sell a product to little kids, hiring me probably will not be the best route for you to do that. But there are people who are trained to understand, how does a 3-year-old see the world? How does a 6-year-old perceive the world? How does a teenager perceive the world? And how can we tap into that general perception to sell them this product? How do African Americans see the world? How do women see the world? So again, like, there are people, like, where that their specialty may be like a Coca-Cola. We want to sell products to Hispanic people too. We want to sell products to Black people too. But we are not from these communities, So we may have to hire Maisha to like educate us on how Black people think, how can we sell them these products in a way that they're going to offend them. Because a lot of times, right, that's how you get into like real racist ass commercials, where like it be some white people that don't know nothing about that. Like, hey, this would be really great for Black people. Let's put a bunch of rappers and guns and people with tattoos and gold chains and that'll sell. And then we looking at this like, what? Like, you know, so again, these are areas of the discipline that you could go in, and quite frankly, they be making a lot of money. And then, of course, social psychology, where we marry various kinds of contacts, Ron, between individuals of different groups and examine the effect of these manipulations on the degree of prejudice exhibited. We're not going to look only at prejudice. We're not going to look only at prejudice. So they just talked about if you were doing a research, if you were focused on the issue of prejudice, these are how you could use these disciplines to unpack this topic. We're going to look at social psychology from many different areas. So again, you know, it's important, you know, I want you to know this stuff for the test, but I want you to know this stuff, Michael, as a working professional and a soon-to-be graduate student. So again, we talked about before clinical psych, they oftentimes will try and see people with psychological disorders as well, where social psychologists will focus more on the typical ways in which individuals think, feel, behave, and influence one another. That word influence there is really important. Many people, Latavia, feel like, okay, I just do this because this is what I want to do. Like, you know, I like Adidas just because, you know, that's a shoe that I like. You know, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan just because that's the team I decided I wanted to root for. You know, I really love hip hop just because, you know, that's just the music that I just chose to listen to. You know, I really value education because, you know, I just was really into, you know, school and stuff like that. Almost none of those things are true. Now, it's true that I did like those things, Ron, but you know what's also true? I had some things that influenced my choices in that regard. Now, in each of these contexts, Michael, I am very consciously aware of the things that influence me. I like Adidas gym shoes very much, Ron. But you want to know one of the main reasons probably that I started wearing them?
Price.
Most of y'all are way too young to have any idea. But
Go ahead.
But these are really popular amongst Run DMC. So Run DMC, they was like the first cast that started with my Adidas, standing on 125th. Like, so from all of, like, so if Run DMC wasn't wearing it, and I thought Run DMC was just like the coolest motherfuckers ever. So had they been wearing some other stuff, maybe I would have gotten into that. Now, again, I still have to make a choice, Ron. There were a lot of different shoes in. You know, I had a lot of people, like, again, like Jordans obviously like were very popular. Even to this day, I like Adidas more than Jordans. I do. And don't get me wrong, you know, we got some mics over here as well, Michael. Don't get it twisted. But the point being,
Do you think? Do you think?
but all these choices were influenced by like other things. Now I still have to make a choice. So the same way, right? You will be influenced by your parents, like to do certain things, to be a Christian, to eat a certain way, to like treat members of the opposite sex a certain way, to how you value education. But you still have a role within your socialization. So always keep this in mind, right? But you're more likely to be influenced by things, Maisha, if you're not really clear that we can be influenced. Like when you think that, you know, the only reason that you do stuff is because you want to, that's actually where you're much more likely to be influenced by things. And there should be some things, Michael, that you want to be influenced by. Like if you're really deep into your faith as a Christian, you're going to church a lot so that you can get influenced by that. Like you may not be able to get those values as much outside of the space, so you're doing it so that you can be influenced. If you want to be a really effective social worker, Michael, like I want you to be around other people that are really passionate and good about that work. That makes sense, right? So there are numerous ways, right? So all these fields, like in many ways, it's disingenuous to isolate them because they interact in so many different ways. I'll let you catch up with these notes. We'll put some of these fresh kicks up real quick, Maisha. I apologize for the demonstration. And I'll let y'all, and I'll continue in a moment. So again, Michael, if there are certain situations that you know make you anxious, as all of us have situations like that, every human being, even the people that you think are just the most coolest, calmest ever. Tom Brady does not seem very flustered on the football field. But I'm sure there's a social situation in which he would be. Being able to understand those situations can be helpful for us ourselves. Because there may be some situations that make you feel anxious, Ron, that you still got to deal with. My brother used to have huge anxieties about flying, as many people do. But in the modern world, you know what? It's hard to develop professionally, and it's hard to live a full life without getting in the airplane at some point. Sorry to disappoint y'all, it's true. Like if you ain't getting on the plane, you're missing out on a lot of stuff, dog. As my brother eventually saw. But he had to be aware of his anxiety, but then because there are some things where there are people that have great phobias, Aisha, about public speaking, and that's totally understandable. But, if you don't overcome that fear, it can hurt you in terms of your professional development. So it's important to acknowledge our fears, but also to try and overcome them. And psychology can help us do that. It can allow us to understand how people perceive or act towards others. So, again, one of the reasons why parents will give us certain lectures about, how to deal with the police, Michael, is that we need to understand the psychology of how those interactions are perceived a lot of times. So again, as a young person going out into the world, you may not necessarily understand that a lot of people look at you, Michael, and don't know anything about you and view you as a threat. You understanding that psychology is really important. Ron Anderson.
So we just touched on the one that stuck, cognitive psychology, right? And basically those people that are hired to understand how the consumers of a certain service or, people that you're trying to market to work, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm thinking, especially right now, with all the race relation things and everybody acting stupid, again, me as a Black individual, I still kind of look at the cops a certain way, right? So it just dawned on me like, I've never, or so far, everything that I've researched, seen something where it's kind of like, can police departments have some type of, cognitive psychology going on? Where it's
absolutely.
Okay, look, we know the areas and the parts that we got to patrol. We got to patrol the hood. We have to. But we know they look at us like, look at those motherfuckers right there. It's time to go. So, again, not even trying to be buddy, but it's like, if you understand when you come around, people go away, maybe you would think they would try to use that to kind of build relations. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I feel like it's so deeply rooted from way back when, before I was even born. It's kind of like, even if somebody was to make an effort at it, would it really do much? Honestly.
No, that's a great question. I see a couple more hands raised. I got y'all in 1 second. So for one, right, to answer your question, yes, you can definitely use it in that type of context. There are some police departments that are doing it already. I believe, for example, for the Atlanta Police Department, don't quote me, but I think they have tests where, like, in addition to all the other things you got to do in becoming a police officer, you actually have to take a cognitive exam. And there are ways where we can measure a person's prejudice and bias before they even get into uniform. Like, cause they're like some of these cops, for example, that it's shown like that have ended up doing like violent things, like it's shown that they had some of these biases already, like that have been measured. And that doesn't mean that you, okay, all right, man, this person definitely hate Black people, that we definitely can't allow them to be a police officer. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it does mean is that, okay, we have to do some things to educate this person and change the way that they see and have these perceptions. And we need to begin to unpack where that's at. To your point, is some people that we might not be able to reach or save. But I don't believe, like, have you ever had a bias, or, and don't lose your point, Maisha, have you ever had a bias or a prejudice against a group of people that maybe has eased up over time? I know I have.
Yeah.
Like I'm far more like open-minded, like about, gays and homosexuality than I was, 10, 15 years ago. So it is possible for racists to be educated. I believe that. I know that. But we have to actually acknowledge the facts that you actually are a racist. And too often we get into emotions because people hear racist, oh my God, I'm a bad person. The same way, like, look, if I can put on this scale that you really are schizophrenic, you ain't got to feel bad about that, but we got to deal with the reality of this. So if you got every human being has biases, every human being. Some of y'all might be racist. Some of y'all may be racist. Some may be sexist. Some may be homophobic. Some people may look down on different religions. What we want to do is unpack these things because, to your point, Ron, they can affect how people do their jobs. Great question. Maisha, thanks for your patience.
I didn't really have a comment. I was kind of like going along with what Ron said, because I've been thinking about that a lot too. It's like, how can I seen like this post or it was something on Instagram, and it was like how mental health professionals can deal with, violent people who have mental issues, but how can the police not? And I was really thinking like the training needs to be better, because if we have to go to college for 4 years just to sit and talk to somebody effectively, how come like their training isn't up to deal with the psychological issues that people may have, and they have the possibility to use force?
Spectacular, exactly. And more departments are doing that. Like, again, right, where a lot of talk has been like about defunding the police and things like that. That's not going to happen. But what we can do is, to that point, like, more and more of them are like, require more training. So I know, for example, like in Chicago now, to be a police officer, you have to have at least a college degree. And increasingly those kind of things are going to matter in terms of your, like, the cognition and things like that. And what it also speaks to, Maisha, I think, like in LA, for example, it's a whole bunch of things that the police deal with that they don't have the skills to deal with. So when they come in and dealing with the person, like, so it's been people, right? I think it was a brother just a few weeks back who got shot. He was going through like a bipolar episode or something, and he ended up getting shot by the police because the police arrived on the scene and they didn't know how to deal with that. You need to have somebody to actually, like, that's like shooting somebody because they having a heart attack and they convulsing violently or something like that, and your solution is to shoot them. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So a lot of it, Maisha and Ron, is that we have been doing things in ways that don't really make sense. So we are moving in a direction where, you're right, police officers are going to be required more to have those kind of skill sets. And we're going to leave it like, if somebody, again, is going through a drug overdose, like, maybe the best answer isn't to call the police. So yeah, so great questions that we can use these skill sets beyond things that just sell people products. Very good. Finally, other things we want to look at is how different behavior can affect health or just behavior at all. So we know whether we're talking about the effects of being abused as a child, the effects of being bullied, the effects of being stereotyped. We know a whole lot today, Latavia, about the effects of like post-traumatic stress. And oftentimes, and I got you 1 second, Latavia, I see you got your hand raised as well. A lot of times we talk about PTSD. We talk about people like that are military veterans and stuff like that. And those cats definitely go through a lot of stuff. PTSD, Michael, is a really new phenomenon, but it ain't new. Like, people in World War II died, like, like our granddaddies and stuff like that, they may have fought in wars. They saw some really crazy stuff, but they were taught back then, you just suck it up and don't talk about it. So we know that that's not natural. To see things that are really traumatic and really fucked up and it not have an effect on your psyche. So one of the things that also needs to be studied and looked at more it ain't just military veterans that deal with PTSD. There are many people across places like the South Side of Chicago, West Philadelphia, New Orleans, Detroit, that be seeing like just some ridiculous levels of violence. Little kids and stuff, like, seeing people like, just whole brains blown out and stuff. And then we tell this little kid, okay, go to school, go to the first grade, little Jermaine. It's gonna be all good. And they gotta carry that the rest of their lives. They just seen their mama get beat and stuff like that, and they just gotta carry that. So one of the things that we also want to do is look at the effects of these kind of behaviors. Because so many things, so many pathologies that Black people have experienced have gone untreated. That's why I really encourage you all to not only become mental health professionals, but avail yourself to mental health services as well. Latavia, you've been very patient. And then, Michael, I got you too.
Yeah. I was gonna say something about when he said something about like how he don't like some officers and how the things that was going on at the White House. There actually was an officer, that was a Black officer that was there at the White House. He was like he was getting called a nigger like by like the white people that was there, and he broke down and started crying because he really didn't know why he was getting treated like that, but he knew because he was an officer, that's why he was getting treated like that. But it is some officers that do like want to help us. It is some officers that's not against us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very important point to make, that one of the things that we want to do in science, we want to speak to patterns, because there's nothing that is 100% true in any realm of science. That is it true that yes, that it normally doesn't snow in South Carolina? Is it true that normally babies, it takes 9 months to come to term? Is it true that Black people are targeted by the police at higher rates? Yes. But is it true that those things happen all the time? Absolutely not. There are always exceptions. So what we want to speak to is why patterns happen and explain why some of these exceptions occur. Michael.
Oh, basically what I was gonna say, you had said it because you was talking about PTSD, and I was gonna basically talk about how, rather than just, people fighting war and whatnot, people, in their everyday life, they might see something that caused them to have episodes that cause PTSD, whether it's somebody being murdered or witnessing something happen to somebody, like anything like that that could be seen as traumatic to somebody, it caused them to experience that.
Right. Yeah, I've had students that have literally seen their parents be killed. Like not heard about it, like they saw it as it was happening. And like and in some of these cases, like, the student, they just kind of dealt with it. Like, again, the mind is a very powerful thing. So the mind oftentimes, it just makes it where to carry on, I'm almost going to block that out so I can just carry on with the day. But you know what, Latavia? It's never fully blocked out. It's always there. And everything's like, again, like with any traumatic thing that happened. So like, I don't know what was going on, man, but like I lost my sister in 2015, my older sister. And even though I thought that I coped with it really well, like something triggered a couple of days ago, and I was just missing the hell out of her, and it was just affecting me really, really badly, just from nowhere. So these things never fully go away. Like, and again, her death was one where, it sucked, but one where we could at least come to grips with it a little bit. She had been dealing with some health issues where she was suffering, and we were kind of relieved in some ways that she was not suffering anymore. So that's very different than like, something like, traumatic where somebody's taken way too soon from you. So it's not normal and natural for human beings to deal with these kind of things in a way that's not affecting you. So it's really important for us to understand these things, and hopefully for you all as young Black professionals can make more Black people feel more comfortable availing themselves to these services, as opposed to feeling that we just got to suck everything up and take it. That's not natural for human beings to do. Maisha Hainsworth.
I just had one more little comment, because when you were saying that, I really feel like more like minority groups fall subject of not taking advantage of mental health issues, because like our cultures, even not just the Black culture, but other cultures,
yes,
like we're just taught like to get over it because nobody really cares, or that's not what we do. And absolutely, it's kind of hard, to talk to somebody about it.
Absolutely, yes. Very good point. Yes, Hispanic, Asian cultures, like Hispanic, like amongst Hispanic men, that process may be even more true, where again, the machismo, they call it amongst Hispanic men, where you're never supposed to like really show any kind of emotional vulnerability. And like, and again, for Black people, where like we're picked at so much where we kind of have to like develop some tough skin. Like we do. Like that's, you can't be up here crying and whining all the damn time, dog. You got to suck some of this stuff up. But you also got to understand that there's a limit. And again, I've had to deal with this myself. I'm very old school in terms of my view of masculinity. I'm very independent. I'm very much the type where I feel like I'm the one that's supposed to fix and solve my problems, but I've had to learn to get some help and assistance. My own parents have had to tell me this at times, like, look, Kareem, like, we love you, we want to help you. You ain't got to be trying to do everything by yourself, man. Like, like, I'm sure y'all have had situations where y'all have tried to take on more than you should, and people in your life have been pissed at you, like, why do you tell me that this is going on, Latavia? Like, you ain't have to be going through all this. What the hell?
There's some stuff you don't have nobody. Like, you have to have that strong mindset, though.
You do.
So that's with me. Like, I have to have a strong mindset. I have to. So
you do.
I'm gonna keep it strong.
You do, and I never want to take that away from you, no doubt about it. But there are times in life where we all need some help. This whole
yes, when you find that right person, you can talk to. That's
no question.
When you can.
No
but
question.
You got to find that person before.
Absolutely. And you all should feel blessed if you got people like that, because she's right. There are some people in this world who doesn't got nobody they can lean on. So if you got people that you can count on, please continue to lean on them and consider yourself really, really blessed. For real, for real. Ron, don't lose your point. Let me get into this real quick before you delve in. Give me 1 second. So also related to this, right? I'm sorry. So also related to this, what we want to do with science is get away from common sense, because there are so many things, Michael, that we assume that we know that we haven't actually studied scientifically. This is really important. So there's common sense, right, that explains many social psychological findings after the fact. So like, this is where, like, so Mikey, I'm not sure how much of a football fan you are, but there's this term called Monday morning quarterbacking, where after the games are played on Sunday, you got all the answers about, well, hey, well, Lamar Jackson should have did is this, but what I would have did is that, and that sounds great. Ain't nothing easier than like figuring it all out after we have seen how it played out. What we want to try and do in science is predict things ahead of time. That requires a lot of research, and it requires us going beyond common sense. Ron, go ahead with your point or question as I pull up the next slide real quick. If you need me to go back, I will, but I wanted to get into this real quick before we go.
So basically I'm thinking like, okay, so for those of us who, want to go further in this field of helping people, on a psychological level, right? It's kind of like, I personally feel like, the first step is to just become aware that you have a problem or you need help, right? Mm-hmm. But then again, not everybody's the same. People don't want to fess up or admit it. It takes you to admit that you need help for you to get help. One, you got to want to help yourself for one.
Absolutely.
Now, I was just thinking like, that shit is dangerous, because like I've had times where it's like perfect. Like my grandfather passed away in 2018, right? It was See, the problem with my family, my father's side of the family, they don't tell nobody shit. So it's like, hey, how's granddad doing? And it's like, oh yeah, he's doing good. He had a little bit of problems in the house, but he's doing good. Then the next night, it's like, yeah, he didn't make it. And it's like, yo, what the fuck? Like, we just went from 0 to 100. And it's like, okay, now I'm gonna deal with that. I shed my little tear that night and I was good. So 2 months, I never really cried though, right? So 2 months later, no, a year later, actually, this was a couple semesters ago, I was just chilling one day and like out of the blue, like just started full blown crying for like 5 seconds. And I literally mean 5 seconds. Then after that 5 seconds, it was just like straight face, I'm good. And it's just like, yo, what the fuck? Like, where did that come from? So that's why I feel like, that shit is dangerous. Cause it's like, I had no control over that at all.
Right,
like
right.
I knew that I was holding it in, but it was like, I didn't know it was just out of the blue. Like,
right.
So like as a profession, like, how do we get past that? That's kind of like.
Great question. So the first thing, like you said, is understanding the nature, we talked a little bit about the social nature of human beings. That human beings can, like, it's like a valve, right? Where I don't have a cup in front of me, but I can only pour so much into this, right? And before it's going to overflow, correct?
Yeah.
That's just nature. Human beings are like that. You can only pour so much stress and so much difficult stuff in, but it's coming out somewhere. Sometimes it may come in crying when you don't expect it. It may, like, you know, that police officer, he probably experienced some of that, where you experience so much racism all the time that you got to take. But at some point it explodes. A lot of times it expresses itself as anger. So you may do something really violent or aggressive to somebody. It could be your kids. It could be somebody on the street that, you know, it could be like you shot somebody, or your fuse is really quick. You just always ready to set it off. And that anger that you're expressing to other people a lot of times, Maisha, is because you're so unhappy inside. But it got to go somewhere. So ideally, what we want to do with therapy is, Ron, that you have more control and power about where it goes. So if you like, okay, look, you're right, Latavia, they're doing the rest of the week, I got to be strong, I got to be tough. But I'm going to go talk to this therapist for like 90 minutes this week, and I'm going to put all this stuff in there. And then when I come out of this room, and I'm back hardcore Kareem again. What's up, motherfuckers? Who wants up? But in there, I'm gonna go call up on the couch and cry for an hour or so. Yo, where nobody can see. And I make light of it, but you know, understanding it about yourself. Because like, in addition to, like, again, sometimes we may be depressed, but I know I have been in situations where I'm like, why am I so angry? Like, just mad as hell all the time. Like, that sucks. Like, you know, so like, you know, just having to, like, so just being able to, like, you know, get those things out. But again, what it calls for is understanding the science of human beings. And, you know, we can only take so much. The strongest and toughest of us. Again, there are some people where every little thing happen, they freak out. I don't want you to be that way. But it also got to be times where you know your limits, because whether you cry, go ahead and make a conscious crier now, like, it's coming out, Ron. Like, I need you to understand that.
Yeah.
In similar fashion, very quickly, like when my grandfather passed, my mother's father, when I was in graduate school, I was just started my PhD program. It was very difficult on my mother, in particular, Michael. So in addition to, like, I'm not the type where I really wear my emotions on my sleeve very much anyway, but then during that time, I needed to be strong for her. So like, I didn't allow myself to really grieve that much, because like, she was really, really going through it. So I just kind of sucked it up and just kind of, you know, went through the weekend, and, you know, I didn't cry, like, you know, at the funeral and stuff at all. Then maybe 2-3 weeks later, like, I was at this jazz concert, Latavia, and like in the middle of the damn concert, man, like, you know, so the performance, it was just so beautiful and moving. In the middle of the fucking performance and stuff, just waterfalls out of nowhere. I'm all right. I'm like trying to like hide in my seat and stuff. Like, man, what the fuck is going on? Like, what the hell is happening? I mean, I couldn't turn them boys off. But like at that moment, like, so between that and then like, for when y'all go to grad school, and I'm gonna encourage all of y'all to try and go. Like, the first month or two is very, very, very stressful. So between all of that and, like, you know, me wondering, like, man, can I do this PhD thing? Like, am I as smart as these kids? Like, just all of it just came about, and just at that moment, it just all came out. So like during, like, you know, one of the things that helped me during graduate school, like, I actually did go, that was the first time I went to go see a mental health professional. And I didn't feel like I was like really depressed and going through, but like the main thing is I'll just be angry and stressed out all the time. And I wasn't never worried. Like, some people, like I said, they may be depressed. Some people may like be angry and act volatile towards other people. Sometimes people do self-destructive things to themselves. I never was worried about me harming myself, but I would really be worried, Latavia, that somebody's gonna say or do something, and I'm gonna beat the fucking shit out of them, and then it's gonna mess up all the things that I've been trying to do for myself. Like, I was in an environment where, like, you know, it was like a really racist environment around a whole bunch of like white folks who looking at me like, pardon the term, what is this nigga doing here? And I'll be constantly worried, like, man, what are y'all gonna do or say something, man? Then they're gonna be looking at me like I'm a fucking crazy black dude. I'm just trying to be cool. Let me just get it through the day. So whatever your situation may be, I hope that you keep this in mind. But the most important thing, Ron, as you begin with, is being able to understand that there is a social reality. And we want to go with social facts, not just what we believe to be true. Because sometimes we'll believe things that are patently false. So we hear a lot of times, a lot of cliches, and you ain't gotta like copy this down. I'm not gonna test you on any of this, Latavia. But this is just to give you some understanding of what we mean between social fact and social fiction. The cliche is that beauty and brains don't mix. that physically attractive people tend to be seen as less smart than physically unattractive people. That's the things that we often hear that, okay, if somebody's really pretty, they probably not very intelligent. People will like an activity more if you offer them a large reward for it. So there's a common sense, right, that if I give you more money for doing something, if I pay you more, Michael, then you're more likely to engage in that activity. But is that true? There can be to a certain degree. Go ahead, Latavia.
That's like when people say like because of like how you talk, you could not be as intelligent. But some people can like just talk like in slang, but like when it comes down to like talking professional, they can talk professional, and that's me. Like I talk slang because I'm country, but when it comes to talking professional or like doing professional things, I know how to talk professional.
Absolutely. And then we'll later unpack what do we even mean by professional. Professional means getting your point across. So it's gonna be times where I'm gonna talk slang to y'all here. You know why? Because that may allow y'all to understand what I'm talking about more than using the King's English. If I'm using this big convoluted term, but y'all don't know what I'm talking about, that's not actually intelligence or professionalism. But point taken. But as it relates to this particular point here, this idea that you will do things or you will like an activity more if you get more money for it. Is that true?
It just all
It
depends
depends.
on. Oh, go ahead, Doc.
No, you good. You good. I agree with you. It depends.
All right, but it just depends, like on whatever the task is or how much money it is. Like it just all depends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right, and that is the accurate answer. That you're right. That it depends upon the situation. But this is saying that no matter what the situation is, that if you give somebody some more money, they're gonna like it more. And there are many situations where that ain't true. Keep this in mind for your career. Keep this in mind for your careers, right? Because a lot of times people think that, hey, that if they pay me enough money, I'm gonna find a way to like it. Nope. It's not true.
There's a lot of people out here that working the job and they're paying good money, but just because they don't like the job, they miserable. I mean,
Right.
they don't like it. It ain't interesting.
Right. And usually it's more difficult to make a lot of money that way. Whether we're talking about like, so again, in social work, you can like do it and you can find a way again to make a living and stuff like that. But usually that's very difficult work. Y'all understand that, right? So usually the people that's gonna make the most money are gonna be people that really love it and enjoy it. That's even something true, like whether we talk about something like jobs that seem really fun, like being an athlete or being an entertainer. It seems a lot of fun, right, to be LeBron James, correct? But you know what you don't see? All the stuff that he got to do that ain't a whole bunch of fun. Like, I don't know nothing about LeBron James. I bet you, like, however much money you get, he was up working on his game at like 5:36 this morning. Guaranteed. He is probably very mindful about every single thing that he's put in his body. I'm finna go here in a minute. I'm finna eat whatever I feel like it. LeBron's like, nah, we got to be on a very select diet. I'm finna be eating squid and octopus instead of the rest of the season. In the summer, I might really get it in. I might eat like 2 cheeseburgers, and then that's it for the rest of the year. Like those are the kind of things they be on, like real talk. Like you don't get to do things that you like. You be seeing it around, like as soon as these cats stop playing and stuff, boy, they waste be picking up quick. But during that time in between, they have to discipline themselves to do all types of things that they don't like, to do the things that they actually like doing. Now, like, do y'all think that LeBron is doing these things only to get money?
Nope.
He wants money, but that's not enough.
He is.
No, he wants more.
Old now.
Right, but he is. But what he wants is greatness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, we all know he ain't gonna be the GOAT. That's impossible. But
never.
But he's chasing history, so. After a certain point, like all these dudes are millionaires in the NBA. How do you distinguish yourself, Michael, from all these other millionaires? How do you show that, hey, I'm different from these other millionaires? Because after a while, that becomes the motivation. And then most significantly, like, I know y'all probably find this hard to believe. There are people in the NBA who hate their jobs.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I like making money. I like being a celebrity, but I'm gonna do just enough to stay in a league. But I'm not gonna be like killing myself, man, to be doing all this extra stuff. Now, most of the people in the NBA like to get to that level because it's a lot of people that like basketball, right? A lot of people that are good at it. Most of them do say making it nowhere near the NBA. So I say all that to say that the notion that money alone is a motivator simply isn't true. Like there are other things like people also, human beings are also motivated by, do you actually like what you're doing? It sounds like in talking to some of y'all that y'all are motivated by, okay, I want to make money. I want to like what I do, but how can I help other people? Like if I was making money, Michael, and I felt like I was not helping y'all, oh my God, like that wouldn't be enough for me. Now I want them to keep, I want to make sure that they maintain these checks. Don't get it twisted. But after, I'm not starving. I'm not going to be put on the street or nothing like that. Like I'm good. After a certain point, there are other motivations beyond that as well. So keep this in mind as we talk about social psychology. People think that they're more unique than they really are, Ron. They underestimate the extent to which we share the same opinions or interests. So oftentimes, again, we think that we're unique and special, but almost everything that's within you is within other human beings as well. We believe that playing contact sports or violent video games releases aggression and makes people less likely to vent their anger in violent ways. But these things are not always true. Let me see. All right, so there's a couple of things that I want to bring your attention to, right? Very quickly before we leave for the day. As we talked about, Ron, with social psychology, we try and deal with social facts, and we learn about social facts through social research. So there's been some really important research projects that I want you that we're going to talk about throughout the semester. So one of the more famous ones is called the Asch experiment, Maisha, the Asch experiment. And all of the purpose of this, Latavia, is so that we can learn about human behavior. So follow me here, okay? The Asch experiment involved the following. Where I draw a series of lines on a paper, and I ask the class which line is the longest. You can all look at it. We can see for ourselves and see that this line here is longer. You see it with your eyes, right? But with the Asch experiment, what Solomon Asch did is like, okay, look, we're going to ask Michael which line is the longest one. He's going to look at it and say, this line is the longest. But Ron, Maisha, Latavia, I want y'all to say that this line is the longest. The one that we all see is clearly the shortest, right? I'm not sure how well y'all can see this. So everybody's gonna say that the line that's the shortest is really the longest. We subjected Michael to this experiment. How do you think most people responded in that situation? What do you think Michael is gonna do after a while?
Second guess himself.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what what most people do in that situation, Ron?
Change the answer?
Yes. You're looking at it for yourself, but everybody else is saying, no, it's this. Do y'all think so? What do y'all think is the purpose of that experiment? Do you think that he's just trying to see who can figure out which line is the longest? What is he trying to learn about human behavior in that experiment?
Possibly. I kind of want to say the influence, but I forgot what it's called, but I know that as humans, we don't like to be the odd one out.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like, yo, everybody else saying this, I don't want to be the only one. It's like, yo, he different. We don't want to be different. We want to blend in. So it's kind of like, I'm going to just blend in. It's easier to blend in.
Good. So what they speak, and that's a social nature of human beings, Latavia, that most human beings, we want to, even the most radical individuals, we want to feel part of something. To be isolated by yourself can be very difficult in the human psyche. So most people have an inherent desire, Maisha, to want to conform. It'd be all types of things that, you go to elementary school, you go to church, you go to your job, that you may be thinking that, hey, it's stupid for people to be doing this, but most people do it anyway. So what this speaks to, Michael, is that there's something in our social nature where human beings, even if you know you right, Michael, even if you know you right, you'll give up your thinking to the rest of the group. That was true when Ash first did this experiment back in the 1930s. That's true in 2020. So you could be a police officer, Maisha, and you know that the way that, people are treating Black people when they got on the street, you know in your heart and your head that it's wrong. But everybody else is saying, no, it's all good. That in having this sorority pledge, do some of these things might be a little bit on the unethical side of hazing. It's wrong, but the rest of the frat is saying it's all good, Ron. So you gonna say it's all good too. This is really important right now. Does this make these people bad people? No, it makes them human beings. I just told you, right, that oftentimes we believe that we're different, we're special. So people be believing, Latavia, that, hey, well, look, all these goofies, they might look at these lines and they gonna say, well, hey, they might just give up their opinion and say that the longest line is really the shortest and vice versa. But I'm strong-minded, I wouldn't do that. But you know what's true? Most human beings wouldn't do. As Ron talked about, it is difficult to be isolated and to be the outlier. That's not an easy place to be. So it's important you understand that about yourself. They're like, look, I don't necessarily like feeling isolated. I don't want everybody looking at me like I'm crazy. That's okay to understand that. But there may be some times, Michael, where you might need to go against the group. And it's really important that you understand when that is. Again, if you don't want to wear a mask, okay, fine. Like, because some people have accused me, Ron, like, hey, you just conforming to like wearing these masks. It's like, no, motherfucker. I'm not just wearing masks because other people told me to wear masks. I went and got a lot of information myself, not just from people on TV, but a whole bunch of people I know that actually got COVID. Yes, I'm gonna mask up. And not only have I not gotten COVID, like shit, I ain't got no goddamn cold in several months and everything. And that's very rare. So again, there can be, like, if you want to conform to facts and information can change. Like, again, like when COVID first hit, I was not one of these big mask people. I was like, oh man, this ain't finna be no big deal. We didn't heard about this disease. We didn't heard about Ebola. We didn't heard about the West Nile. It'd be something every year. So like, I was still like, traveling. I went to like the weekend when everything got shut down. I was at a conference. I got on the airplane. I saw other people wearing a mask. I did not. As I got more information, particularly Michael, like that same weekend, like when they canceled the NCAA tournament and the NBA shut down, that really got my attention. I was like, damn, that's like billions of dollars these motherfuckers finna give up, dog. White people ain't finna be giving up that kind of money for no reason. Maybe this might be a little bit different. Let me look into it a little bit more deeply. Going to college, again, many people, Michael, they go to college because people tell you that's just what you're supposed to do. That ain't no good reason. You need to go to college because you want to go to college. People, again, is, like if let me see. If there's, I'm sure all of us, right, there have been certain songs that we know are stupid and whack as hell. But everybody else like this song, Maisha. So you go along, singing and dance along with it. May not even know what the song is about sometimes. So all these things are true of human behavior. That human beings are naturally and generally conformists, meaning that we generally will forfeit our will to the group. But we want to look at and explore why. Social dissonance, cognitive dissonance is another research. Cognitive dissonance is where we oftentimes, we'll talk about this later, how there's a disconnect between how we see ourselves and who we actually are. So for example, some of the police officers that may have killed Tamir Rice. Tamir Rice, that was a little kid on the playground. He was playing with a toy gun. Police roll right up and no questions asked, just roll up and shoot Shorty in cold blood. those people will still convince themselves that they did nothing wrong and that they're not racist. Because again, there's a lot invested in the human mind for us to see ourselves in the most positive ways. Some of y'all gonna be doing this in here, right? Y'all gonna be failing this class and will not acknowledge, hey, what role did you play in your actions play, Maisha, in terms of your class performance? This don't make you a bad person. Don't mean that can't change, but like you need to be honest about that. As opposed to saying, well, hey, I did everything perfect and, the teacher just tripping. I didn't do anything racist. These people, like Black people, are just a little bit too sensitive. So cognitive dissonance, where there's a disconnect between your actions and how you perceive yourselves. And many people, every human being has suffered from cognitive dissonance at some point. Michael, you cheated on your girlfriend and you found a way to make it her fault. Well, I only cheated because she didn't do X, Y. Hey, what they got to do with what you did, dog? Maybe that's true, but what they got to do with what you did, Michael? Well, if she would have been doing X, Y, Z, hey, dog, come on. Because again, right, like, look, I've been there, Michael. I'm not saying, again, I am not throwing no glass on.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Right. Because I know I've been there. Well, hey, it's this person's fault. If she wasn't tripping, man, then I wouldn't even did all that. Nikki Palmer, who I dated in college and everything, when she was pledging, I may have dipped out a little bit, Latavia. I was like, look, if you went up here like showing all the love to your sorority sisters and everything, then I wouldn't have to do all that. It ain't my fault. But
yeah,
I had to own some.
Yeah.
All right. But I had to own some responsibility for that.
That's like saying, she not doing this, so I'm gonna go get it from somebody else.
Right. And again, she may not be doing that, but that requires a different solution. Then I need to be like, Latavia, you ain't doing XYZ. We need to pound company, deuces, as opposed to me making a different choice. Another experiment, right? Like we wanted to see, and I'm gonna try and I'll pull this up on Tuesday. I won't keep y'all for this, but Stanley Milgram also had an experiment, right? And these experiments are aimed, Michael, to learn about human nature. And here, where he wanted to learn about is people's tendency to obey. In particular, right, this experiment came in the wake, Latavia, after Nazi Germany.
Wait. I think I know this one. I think I remember this one.
Go ahead,
because we did this one in sociology.
Absolutely.
This is the experiment where like he told people to shock other people, but actually like the more they screamed, the more they shocked, and they knew they was doing it wrong. What they were doing was wrong, but they continued to do it because somebody else told them to, so they didn't feel like the blame was on them, but for the people who was giving the orders.
Excellent. Next credit point, Maisha, outstanding. And again, use these examples. I teach in such a way where the things I teach in one class will build into others. And all of us, I think, are doing this increasingly. So please listen up to some of the things you learned in other classes that will be relevant here. And what they were trying to measure there, and I'll pull this up on Tuesday, and I actually will begin class and showing you this experiment because they actually got it on tape. And it was trying to examine the degree to which people obey. So with we look back at Nazi Germany and we see Hitler as a monster, understandably. But something like the Holocaust couldn't happen, Michael, if it was only Hitler doing it. So the same way, right? Like when we talk about police brutality, we definitely want to hold those individual officers to account, but it's a lot deeper than that. And we'll unpack that later on. So in this way, right, we wanted to look at how will people obey Hitler and his minions when they had to feel bad about the things they were doing. They had to know what was wrong. Don't they have a conscience? Why would they still do such a thing? And what this experiment showed, Michael, is that if you feel like you're just following orders and it's not really your responsibility, then it's easier for you to kind of carry on some really messed up things. So as Maisha has spoke to, they were shocking. They were shocking people, and it turned out they really weren't being electrocuted, as we'll see on Tuesday. But you think that you're shocking Latavia for every question that she gets wrong. And Michael's like, dang, dog, she's screaming, man. I feel bad. I'm like, Michael, don't worry about it. Just keep going. So the responsibility there is not Michael's. It's the person that tells him to keep going. Keep this in mind, right? I hope that you all have your own businesses one day, but at some point you may have to work for somebody else. and somebody may tell you to do something that's really unethical. And a lot of people be doing stuff like that just because, well, my boss told me to do it. That's not a good reason. You know, so like even on some of these police departments, the individual officers should be held accountable, Latavia. But you know, like who sets the tone for a lot of that stuff? Like the leaders and officials themselves, the police chiefs, the politicians. So we need to look at some of their policies that influence how these people behave on the ground. So keep these things in mind, right? We're going to talk about a lot of different social experiments over these next few weeks and famous social psychology studies. And all of this is aiming to study, to learn about human behavior. The next thing that we're going to learn about beginning next week is the self. So we talk about these things, Ron, about social psychology and knowing how you interact in groups. But the first thing that you got to understand before you interact with groups, Latavia? You. I think that y'all will find this a very interesting chapter. Again, like if you don't get nothing out of this class, I hope that, Michael, you at least get to walk away from it understanding your own personal psychology. What kind of things make you tick? What kind of things are going to motivate you? What kind of things piss you smooth the fuck off? What type of things are you maybe a little bit biased about? What type of things are you really open-minded about? Why are you this way? What type of things are you repeating? What type of good habits that you saw your parents and grandparents doing are you repeating? What type of bad habits are you repeating and carrying on? What type of bad things that happened to you, Ron, when you were younger that you're still holding on to now that maybe you're projecting onto other people in your life? Why am Aisha every time, and I don't know that this is true about you specifically, but here's one for me, for example, right? I'm working on some research right now, Ron. It has been really so I shared it with a couple people here on campus. I shared it with some other people. It is being really positively received right now. And you know what that does to me? It makes me more nervous and freak out. Like, I don't know, so, because it's okay, I got to do the work, but it's almost that if I hear too many positive things about myself, I question it. It's really stupid. But, so I don't even know that I took, I had to challenge myself about that today. Dude, people are telling you that this is good and you're freaking out and going crazy about it. Why can't you just be in it? So I say all that to say, and I'm an old man, Latavia, and there are still so many things that I'm still trying to figure out about myself. So we're going to unpack this a lot in next chapter, right? And listen, when we talk about the self, even though you all are unique individuals, it's important to understand that there are certain things that are just true about human beings in general. So one of the things that we'll talk about is how, for everybody, what do you think, before we close for the day, in developing the selves that you are here at age 20, 21, 22, which years do you think were the most important in shaping
childhood?
What years? Age 4, age 10? Your high school years when you were 16?
I feel like my high school year probably shaped me the most.
Yeah. Matter of fact, no.
I went through a lot of bullshit, but
absolutely.
I say earlier than before the age of 10, that era.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And there's no wrong answer to that, as we'll talk about later on. But the most important age amongst most human beings, 0 to 3 years old. All types of stuff goes on there. So, and that's not just true. Again, that doesn't discount the things that you had happen in high school. So, in this way, Michael, and again, I can say this as an old man, that the person, in many ways, the person that I was, my sophomore year of high school, looking back, a lot of that really began to get crystallized, in terms of my personality, in terms of that doesn't mean I didn't keep growing and maturing. I continue to, but a lot of the things that would shape the future direction of my life was really beginning to get set in stone then. But I would not have been able to even become that person without certain things happening within my first 3 years of life. Because one of the things that we're going to talk about in the next chapter, Latavia, is how, the basic things, right? our ability to talk, walk, eat food. We take those things for granted because they're so easy now, right? But you know what's true about human beings? If you don't learn and get certain verbal skills, Latavia, by the time that you're like 3, 4 years old, you know what happens? You'll never get them. That's like, again, we take it for granted, learning how to walk. If you learn that by a certain age, dog, like it's gonna be tough. You probably believe I'm just making this up, but we got research, we got data that's gonna show it over these next few chapters. So if something like talking and walking, which seems like natural and easy as hell, right? Think about all the other things. How you treat and view the opposite sex, how you manage your money, how you value your eating habits, your basic personality. Are you very calm and subdued? Are you aggressive? Are you encouraged to speak out? Are you encouraged to be a conformist? Your religious beliefs. So many of those things, again, that's just off the top of my head, get baked in very, very early on. That's why, again, so many parents are very mindful about the type of stimuli that they expose their children to, because, again, right, like the older we get, it actually becomes more difficult for us to learn. That's not even just because of us as human beings in terms of our brain development. But when little kids are real young, oh my God. Like that's like the cliche that the brain is like a sponge, like that's real. They're soaking up everything. Things that you don't even think that you remember, like when you was a little kid, Latavia, it's in there. Like I'm sure it's probably things that your parents have like, asked, like, how do you even remember that? You don't know, but it's there. We'll talk about this in more detail next week. Please begin to read at least the first portion of this chapter when we meet on Tuesday. If anybody has any questions between now and then, let me know. And you all have a wonderful weekend. Check your email over the weekend. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's just a personal question I was gonna ask you because I asked after like everybody leaves.
Okay, yeah, I'll kick everybody out, and you and I will stay behind.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
All right, y'all too.
You too.
Check out emails.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. Have a good weekend.
In 1 second, Maisha. I was on your mind, Miss Hainsworth.
Okay, so I've been thinking a lot about, well, I'm an upcoming now, so I've been trying to think of like career options after graduation, because I don't want to I know I want to go to grad school, but I don't know if I want to go straight to grad school or do I want to try to find something in my field first.
For sure.
And I kind of find it difficult, when I talk to other students, because how our our curriculum is set up, my major is so different. So when people ask me what I'm majoring in, I really don't tell them the actual name, because they're like, what is that? So my question is, what can I do after graduation?
So after getting a bachelor's, and your major is human services, correct?
Yes, sir.
Let me
because I was thinking about going to grad school for counseling.
Right. Let me investigate a little bit more deeply, and I'll give you a precise answer in terms of the careers that you will be competitive for. Here's some things I know for sure, because I know a class, one of your peers and I talked about this last semester. They were interested in doing guidance counselor, being a guidance counselor at an elementary or high school. I think you can do that without with a bachelor's and things of that nature. The income may be limited, but I do think that you can do things like that. So give me a couple of days and let me research it more thoroughly, because I don't want to speak off the cuff, and I'll be able to give you some precise responses. I do know that for the most part, and this isn't just true of human services, I think this is true in all the social sciences, increasingly it becomes difficult to have the degree pay off for you as much in terms of a career if you don't go into grad school as well and get at least a master's degree. It's not impossible. Right. And that's why it's good that you're asking these questions early on so we can do this research. But it's totally understand. If you don't want to go right away, there's nothing wrong with that at all. And ideally, maybe we could even find a job where they help pay for you if you wanted to go back to grad school. But
I totally want to go, but
You
I
might not
just
want to go
like,
right away.
yeah, like I'm looking into options of going right away, but life happens sometimes, and I'm a person I like to very much plan how A, B, C. Like if A doesn't go right, I have plan B ready. Like, and I just don't want to be stuck, like going back home stuck.
I feel that. I feel that. We're gonna make sure that that doesn't happen for sure. Um, Let me dig and delve a little bit more, but in doing so, let me ask you this: what exactly, in terms of the type of work that the type of things that you think will help you get up out of bed and go to work every day? What do you want to do? Let's just start there. If money is no object, and we're not thinking about how many years of school you got to invest, what type of things do you like to do that you think you can sustain as a career?
I narrowed it down because that's something I actually think of. I know like dealing with rehabilitation, especially like doing like correctional time. So like inmates and stuff like that, that really interests me. Like right now I work at a prison, but I don't work with the inmates or nothing. But I try to like, that's something that really interests me. Children really interest me, especially like adolescence area. One day I really want to open like my own school kind of, and like, or after school program to help like schools like at-risk children like in my neighborhood. Like I know like so many people who didn't finish school because they wasn't just interested in it.
Right.
And my third option was, I don't know, I can't remember it, but I know it's either corrections or children.
Okay, good. Okay, that's very helpful. So like I said, give me a couple of days. If you don't hear anything from me by Monday, and I don't think it'll take that long, definitely feel free to give me a nudge. In fact, I'm probably gonna, if you have, what's a good time for you tomorrow? I want to schedule a Zoom meeting to talk to you about that fellowship as well.
Tomorrow around around 10 o'clock is good.
Okay, for
It's
sure. So I
All
will
right.
probably put you on the calendar for like 10:30. We won't need to meet very long, but I do want to go over the parameters. We're behind schedule, but like we can get kind of very quickly. And probably if you still have access to the research that you started working on in sociology last semester,
I do.
we probably will like tailor it towards that project. We can change it to
Okay.
maybe, but at least we can like you ain't got to be trying to reinvent the wheel in like less than a week.
Okay.
So be on the lookout for the invite. We may not meet the deadline, but I at least want to explore the options. So if we don't do it this time, we'll at least have you set up for next year. But I would really like to explore this because like this might even help answer some of the questions that you're looking at in terms of giving you a full range of opportunities that you could explore for your post-Allen opportunities, and they give you a lot of assistance in terms of like grad school pay and even like bringing down those student loans and stuff.
Okay.
So as somebody who of your intellect and caliber, I at least want to explore the opportunity. So we'll talk about that briefly tomorrow. If we can't do it, we can't do it. But I at least want to like see what our options are.
All right. Thank you.
Now you're more than welcome. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll follow with you about some of your career options as well. I appreciate you giving this some thought so early.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ms. Hainsworth. Read up over the weekend, okay?
All right. I'm done with chapter 1. So you want us to go ahead and start reading the chapter 2?
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right, have a great weekend. Well, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day.
You too.
Peace.